So I recently purchased this 2010 Concours 14. It's the second generation Concours 14, which had some improvements around heat management primarily. I think there were also some improvements to the brakes, but my initial impressions of the bike have been pretty positive. Looking at other reviews, I was afraid the bike would feel top heavy, but I don't find that at all. I mean, as soon as the bike is rolling, it feels super agile and manageable in low speed conditions. I'm going to raise the windshield here. That's another nice feature of this bike, the electronic windshield. The previous two sport touring bikes I had were Ducati Multistrada. So I had a second gen Multistrada and a first gen Multistrada before this bike, which was my 2-up sport touring type bike. I really got tired dealing with the electronic gremlins that comes with European bike ownership, and some mechanical gremlins too. This bike is an incredible value. You can find them for under $6,000, $5,000 or so. This one, the owner had just dropped it to $3,200. I just had to jump on it. It was such a good deal. I've always wanted to try one of these big 4-cylinder hyper sport platforms, either from Suzuki with the Hayabusa or Kawasaki with the ZX14 or the Concours 14. So I said, well, what the heck, I'll buy it if it's in good working order, and if I don't like it or tire of it, I'll sell it and not lose much or anything. I can probably make a few $100s. So one of the reasons this bike was at a lower price than average is the number of miles on the bike. It's got 65,000 miles on it, which for this platform is not much at all. I mean, you see quite a few of these bikes over 100,000 miles without any issues. The heat management on this new bike is really good in my experience, because like I said, I owned two Ducati Multistradas before that, and Ducatis in general are known for kind of baking the rider, so I was used to a high level of heat. I had this bike out in slow speed conditions and the mid to upper 90s the other day, and I had no complaints about the heat at all, and it was kind of in city traffic, stop and go, with some lights. One thing that surprised me on the negative side is the windscreen. Even though it's a huge windscreen and has a lot of adjustability, it seems that when it's fully up, I kind of feel like it sucks me towards the windscreen at higher speeds, and in the other positions there's different levels of noise and buffeting that I'm getting. I did find one specific mid position that seems to work well at all speeds. This bike is dangerous though. Before you know it, you're cruising at 80 to 100 miles an hour and it feels like you're going 50. It almost feels like the speedometer is broken, but it's not, because you see how other traffic around you is flowing. I might end up getting a radar detector, not because I want to speed, but just because you find yourself speeding so easily that you want to make sure you have time to lower your speed if there is some law enforcement looking to reduce speeds in an area. The other thing I was surprised by is the suspension. And again, this is kind of a negative. It's very sporty. It's pretty stiff. It's more on the sport side than the touring side of sport touring. And this is after I adjusted all the preload and clickers to have the right level of preload and go back to stock rebound damping settings. The previous owner, looking at the receipts of stuff he had bought, there was a lot of extra large jackets and stuff, gloves. So I think he was a larger man, and he had everything set quite a bit stiffer than stock. It helped a lot to set it for my weight from a preload perspective and get the rebound softer back down to the stock settings. Another reason I guess this bike was a lower cost than some of the average prices you see for this bike. A couple of issues. A common issue with this the KIPASS electronic key is that there's a little micro switch in there that gets gummed up or dirt scuffs it over time, and then it kind of stays stuck down. So you're not able to turn on the bike if that happens, and the previous owner had tried lubricating that to avoid that issue, but I think that ends up just attracting more grime, and the clearances around that micro switch are kind of low, so you end up making things worse, I think, if you lubricate it. He was using a little Q-tip to poke in there and get the micro switch to pop loose when he couldn't start it, so he gave me his Q-tip to do that trick. But I ended up spraying contact cleaner in there, which I think helps remove the old grime, and maybe also some of that dry lube he sprayed in there that I think is gumming things up worse than helping. And I haven't had an issue with it since I did that. Another issue with the bike, the the horn wasn't working in the front. One of the wires going to the horn was broken right at the connector, so that was a super easy repair. I just uncrimped the connector and put the wire back in and recrimped it, and horn works fine. Try it. Yeah, a crazy thing that happened during my test ride. First bump I hit, going maybe 25 miles an hour or so, just testing it around the block to start with, and the right side bag just flies off, and I hear it fly off and hit the ground. I turn around, I can't see the bag anywhere. I see the bag is not on the bike. Went back and forth along the street and I couldn't find the bag for 5-10 minutes. It had actually fallen into a deep ditch. So I got off the bike, grabbed it from the ditch, and of course it has a lot of scuffs and damage from the tumbling it went through, unfortunately. But the latch is actually broken on that bag, and that's another common issue with this bike, that the luggage latches are kind of weak, and I could tell that one had been glued together, so it had been broken before. I guess it was good that it fell off during the test ride, because if I had put the bike on the back of the trailer and lost the bag somewhere down the highway, I never would have noticed, and would have lost it forever probably. So I'm gonna try to modify the bag somehow, make those latches stronger, and maybe attach it more in a more solid, semi-permanent way to the bike, which will make it harder to remove, but we'll see what I can come up with. A handful of issues with the bike, that a couple were very easy to fix. The bags, unfortunately, kind of have a bit of a design flaw with that latch being kind of weak, and other people have had the bags fly off. 66,000 miles almost on this bike. I wouldn't expect it to be perfect, and for that price, as long as all the mechanicals are strong. And the previous owner was the original owner, so he actually put those 65,700 miles on the bike himself. He kept meticulous records of all the maintenance, and that's great, right? Because you know that the bike was taken well care of. He did all the valve adjustments on time, he did all the lube changes on time, spark plugs. Another issue with the bike, which is a known thing that goes out, is the tire pressure monitors are not working. The battery on those sensors is welded into the sensor, so that Kawasaki wants you to buy a whole new sensor. But next time I switch out the tires, I'll have those sensors removed and do the welding myself. The bike is super maneuverable at low speeds. I can see why this is a popular police officer motorcycle. I think here in El Paso there are some Concours 14s being used by police officers, so obviously they're going to look for reliable bikes that are easy to handle at low speeds, bikes with enough power for pursuits. And this is a common bike that different police departments around the country use, so that's also a good sign. I've only ridden this bike about 3 times, I guess, and I'm almost ready to say that this is the best street bike I've owned. It's super intuitive, super easy to ride, very easy to maneuver at low speeds. The throttle is very nice, the clutch is very nice. The brakes, they're linked brakes, which I thought I wouldn't like, but you are able to set them to a less combined setting, and at low speeds like this, the front doesn't kick in at all when you apply the rear. So you're able to bust U-turns with the assistance of the rear brake without any issue. Overall, I don't like the electronic key. I mean, I don't think it makes sense. Just a standard mechanical key would work best. Overall, the added security from perceived convenience isn't that great from the electronic key. You still gotta remove it to do the fuel, to do the bags, to remove the seat, so kind of defeats the purpose. I'm very happy with the purchase. I mean, how could you not be $3,000 to try such an incredible machine for a bit? And like I said, if I don't like it, I'll just resell it. But I'm thinking I'm going to keep this for a while. It's really, really nice. Very easy to ride at low speeds, high speeds. We'll see what my wife thinks riding it as a passenger. Like I said, the suspension is stiffer than I thought, but the seat is super padded, super comfortable, wide. Nice grab handles for the passenger. We'll try it on the weekend and see how that goes. This bike loves high-speed sweepers. This is where it's most comfortable. There are some bumps here in the middle of this sweeper that or off ramp that upsets a lot of vehicles. That felt pretty good. Well controlled and stable, but it is on the stiff side. Very easy to just adjust your line and dodge stuff that you come upon. Lovely handling. That's the biggest surprise. Thought it was going to feel heavy and top heavy and bulky, and it feels and actually looks a lot more compact than it does in pictures. Fitting it into my garage and everything was pretty easy. It's kind of wide here in the front, but these mirrors fold, which gives you extra clearance when parking in the garage. The fact that it's lower than the Multistrada I think also helps it feel more compact. The mirrors and the wide handlebars on the Multistrada I think made it feel bulkier than this bike in some ways to park and maneuver in the garage. Another pleasant initial impression has to do with vibration. The bike has very, very low vibration. A tiny bit felt through the handlebars at times, but very minimal. I mean, it almost feels like an electric motor. Turbine smooth, really don't feel any vibration in the seats, don't feel any vibration in the pegs, just a tiny bit in the handlebars. The other thing that's really nice and that this large powerful motor allows for is tall gearing. You have nice tall gearing that keeps the bike smooth and relaxed at highway speeds, and I'm sure also helps with fuel economy to some level. Even though the bike is tall geared, because of how powerful the engine is and how big the engine is, you can keep it in 6th gear on the highway for the most part and still have, you know, reasonable roll-on or passing power. The engine is also super quiet, you know, even with this aftermarket exhaust installed. I believe it's the Vance and Hines. It's still very quiet. That's one of the concerns I had. I don't like overly loud exhaust, even though it seems I always end up buying bikes that have aftermarket exhausts. This one is not bad. The bike is inherently quiet, and this exhaust is a quality piece that reduces weight but still controls sound pretty well. So that's another pleasant surprise and good first initial impression. The noise is pleasant. The bike sounds powerful, throaty, but it's not an annoying high volume sound. Today I've done multiple trips throughout the day on the bike, and I've actually changed my mind on the KIPASS system. I actually like it quite a bit. It's a little thing, but not having to fumble for your keys, remembering what pocket you put your keys in, storing your keys in one of your jacket pockets, pants, whatever. The KIPASS system completely avoids all that. You just turn off the bike, walk away. You know you have your fob somewhere in your jacket. You're able to just turn on the bike with the fixed key that stays on the bike. So it actually feels like you can get to where you're going quicker, and you're not even thinking about the key. You just hop on the bike, turn the key, take off, get to where you're going, get off, walk away from the bike. Now if you end up losing, if you lose all your key fobs, etc., so that's where the pain in the butt comes from. I did not expect this bike to be such a good commuter. You know, you think big heavy bike, you're not going to want to commute on it, but I'm having a lot of fun commuting on this bike, and in a lot of ways it's easier than my little MT-03 because of the added power. On the highway you're able to maneuver around traffic easier, and the much better weather protection, wind protection makes it more comfortable. And for me, I'm at 6 feet tall. The MT-03 that I use as a track bike and that I have been commuting on periodically is it does feel a little bit small from a legroom standpoint. See, that's the first time I took off on a steep hill, and it was easy to manage. So far it looks like I'm averaging right at 40 miles a gallon, and I'm not taking it easy on the bike. I mean, I'm having fun with it, not just trying to ride it for efficiency. But yeah, I would say the biggest initial disappointment would be the windscreen. With such a large windscreen and so much range of adjustment, I was really hoping it would be turbulence free in several positions, nice and quiet in the top position, but it's not the best. Right about there, slightly up from the lowest position, feels the smoothest to me. I get more air to the helmet, but it's a smoother flow of air, and I'm not sure how loud that wind is going to come across the microphone. So for motovlogging, it might not be the ideal position. So that position plus leaning forward gets really quiet, but not comfortable to be riding like this all the time. Another thing I noticed yesterday that might be an issue on this bike is when braking from a high speed, I'm noticing a little bit of juddering, a little bit of vibration from the front end. The initial versions of this bike had disc warping issues, which I believe was corrected in this second gen Concours 14 starting in 2010. But it looks like the tires front and back are a little bit cupped because the previous owner ran the bike with low pressures. The pressures are supposed to be 42 psi. When I picked up the bike and checked the pressures, they were like at 35, 34, quite a bit below where they should be. And I'm wondering if as I run the bike with the proper pressures, maybe I'll get the cupping to smooth out a bit. But either way, I'm gonna check the rotors, check the thickness, see if they're where they're supposed to be, and might try to check for warping by looking at the run out, raising the front end, and spinning the tire and seeing how much the rotor wobbles back and forth. There's got to be a spec for run out. But yeah, it's not too bad, but it is noticeable. And since we're talking about brakes, a key safety element, I am gonna look into it a little bit more. But other than that, here in my second day of commuting on the bike, I'm loving it. It really is an amazing bike for commuting. The only thing this bike can't do is adventure biking off-road, but I got other bikes for that type of riding. I'm curious to ride the bike at night. The lights on this bike are supposed to be amazing, both low beam and high beams. Might go out in the evening just to see what the lights are like, see if it's true that they're fantastic.